Hello. Today we'll be taking a tour of Greek theaters. Greek theaters have been iconic for centuries and have influenced our culture today, as well as modern theater so much.
Places, people.
Hello everyone. Today we'll be taking a tour of Greek theaters. Greek theaters have been iconic for centuries and have influenced our culture today, as well as modern theater so much. But today we'll be talking more about the architecture and design rather than the theaters and like the plays themselves. Early Greek theaters really weren't theaters at all. They were mainly open areas in city centers or next to hillsides where audiences could watch choruses sing about gods and heroes. By the end of the 5th century BC, the structures were mainly made of wood, and by the 3rd century BC, Greek theaters evolved into more complex stone structures. But they were still fundamentally the same as early theaters. There are 4 main parts of the Greek theater. The theatron is where the audience sat. Most of the time, this was built right into a hillside. These seating areas have changed very little over the years since ancient Greece, since semicircle design is such an efficient arrangement. The pairdoi are the passageways that the audience, chorus, and some actors use to enter the theater. They are just hallways, really. The orchestra was almost always circular and was where the chorus danced and sung, sometimes interacting with actors. The skene was built behind the stage, and that acted as a backdrop for the play and was decorated for each play. The theater has a lot of aspects, so here are a few more. Kouni were the sections of seats in the theatron. Diazoma were the walkways between the kouni. Proedria were the fancy throne-like seats in the front row for VIPs. Something that the Greeks needed to design the theaters for was sound. This isn't as big of a problem today as it was back then, since today we have microphones and speakers, but the Greeks had to design the theater so audiences in the back row could hear everything on stage. These theaters aren't all small either. The theater of Dionysus in Athens could seat 17,000 people. The theater in Epidaurus could seat 14,000. It is estimated that the theaters in Megalopolis and Ephesus could seat 44,000 and 56,000 people respectively. That's a lot of people. To put it in perspective, Miller Park in Milwaukee here can only hold about 42,000 people. So just think of the scale of those theaters. How do you make a theater that big and still be able to hear everything without microphones? One thing was the shape of the theatron. It was a concave semicircle built on a hill. This let the flow of voices and sound travel naturally over the audience. Another factor was the skene, which reflected sound towards the audience, amplifying it, since it was so hard and made out of stone. Like that, the hard surfaces of the orchestra and seats also helped to amplify sound. One of the more interesting ideas of sound amplification were sounding bases. Now, there isn't any archaeological evidence that these things existed, but there is writing about them, so they may or may not have ever been used. Either way, these were vases that were placed throughout the theatron and tuned to resonate with each other. This made sound from the orchestra travel all throughout the theatron, kind of like ancient speakers. Like I said before, the theaters were often constructed on the sides of hills for the sound, and since it was easier to stagger the seating. Another consideration for location was the view. Architects wanted the audience to have a spectacular view of the landscape as well as the performance. This is the Theater Pergamon in present-day Turkey. Constructed in the 2nd century, it's on top of a very steep hill over the Caicus River, and obviously has a very breathtaking view. So many theaters had amazing views, making them popular tourist attractions today. On that note, I have an interview with my girlfriend who actually saw the Theater of Dionysus in person while at the Parthenon. So here's that. Today I have with me Miss Mia Villarreal, a woman who loves to travel. So, you recently went to Greece and visited the Parthenon. One of your stops there was the Theater of Dionysus.
Yes.
Could you describe the theater?
It was like on like the hillside on the way up to the top of the Acropolis. And it was rounded, it's really big, and we couldn't go in.
Oh, why is that?
I'm not sure. Probably to preserve it.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't think other people were in it, but I know my group couldn't go down there. I don't think other people were in it.
You have to maybe have to pay for it or something?
Maybe.
Were there a lot of tourists there?
Yes. It was very busy. It's very hot, very crowded.
What did you take away from the theater and all?
A rock. I'm just kidding.
Whoa.
I'm just kidding. No, I didn't take anything from it. But what I got out of the experience, I don't know. It was cool to see something so historic. I don't know. Rewind. My life changed drastically.
I'm putting that in there.
My life changed drastically. My drug problem stopped.
I'm not
Kidding.
putting that in
No,
there.
put that in there.
I'm gonna put that in there, but I'm not gonna say, it's not gonna sound like it's a joke or something.
My drug problem stopped.
Okay. Well, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet me down here and talk just a little bit about the Theater of Dionysus.
Of course, anytime.
Oh my god, Jesus. Wow, that was great. Some great insight there. Well, this concludes our tour for today. I hope you learned something about Greek theater, and as always, I'll see you around the world!